Lesson 8, Tapas. Tapas is the practice of austerity. Why do we need austerity? Because energy has a tendency to condense. And it not only leads to physical deterioration of health, but also mental and spiritual deterioration. The body, or the human being, not just the body including everything, including the mental body, the intellect, and the spiritual body, is like a mechanism, it's like a car, like a machine. And machines or cars, if they're not being used, they deteriorate. They become rusty. The engine gets stuck if there is no refreshed new oil once in a while. That's just a reality that we have to deal with. So there are, these expressions in most languages that say a healthy mind in a healthy body. But it's not only about the mind, it's about the whole, your sense of well-being, your happiness, everything depends on your condition. Everything is energy. And if we stop moving, if we stop using our body for what it is designed for, we start to deteriorate. And in the end, in the long term, we become sick. And the end of the road is, of course, death. People who do not do any maintenance, like my grandfather, he just died. If he had done a little bit of austerity, tapas, if he had taken care of him himself, he could have lived 20 years more. But what is austerity? Let me phrase it in this way. Austerity is subjecting yourself to discomfort deliberately, consciously, in order to become more comfortable. Because comfort, a sense of comfort, physically and mentally, also depends on energy. The healthier we are, the better we feel. And health is strength, is energy. Energy equals strength equals health equals happiness. It's all related with one another. Some people, many people actually, intuitively or instinctively practice austerity already. When you go to the gym to exercise, when you go to the park or the riverside to walk, just make a walk or ride a bicycle. Or when you practice asana. Practicing asana is a form of tapas, practice of austerity, but in a very particular way, in a very measured way. Some people push the practice of austerity to the extreme. You see the picture here? This emaciated yogi, fakir. I was a little bit like that. When I had my yoga studio in Itaewon, I was very austere. I ate very little and purely vegetarian. And I was like that. I was emaciated, very tiny. Sometimes it's helpful. There are certain asanas that you can do when you're in this condition that are more difficult. When you have swimming, how do you call that? When you have a tire around your waist. But I'm now at the point that I prefer to have that tire around my waist because this condition is really not good. I got really sick. But not understanding what was happening, it just got worse and worse. And my muscles started to hurt. I became more and more stiff. Then I developed a permanent headache. I got a black pus coming out of my ear infection, that eventually got so bad that the black pus coming out of my ear. So one day I weighed myself, and the scale, it was an analog scale, indicated that I was 59 kilo, which is about 6-7 kilo below my normal average weight, which is already minimal. So I thought that is not possible. The scale is broken. So I bought an electronic scale, a digital scale, put in the batteries, and I was still 59 kilo. Then I started to realize something is wrong. I went to a clinic in Itaewon, the international clinic, had a comprehensive blood test. Everything was lacking. I was lacking all the essential nutrients, all the essential minerals and vitamins. I was lacking almost everything. So finally I understood. Austerity can be damaging if you push it too far. It felt good, because when you eat little, you have more energy. Strange, huh? But if you eat little and no meat or animal products, you feel literally very light. But when you're busy, I was of course busy teaching yoga. That was in the beginning stages of my development as a yoga teacher. Also, the relationship I was in caused stress, was not good, a bit abusive. And when you are distracted and busy and also emotionally, mentally not stable, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika actually is clear about that. You need to eat more. So we will read about that later on. You simply have to eat more and more nutrient-rich food. So I had to learn that the hard way. I've been a vegetarian for 20 years, and in the end that resulted, it was good, but it resulted in me becoming severely underweight, getting sick. Everything started to fail basically. I had heart palpitations and heart skipping a beat, and pain in the liver and the kidneys, and it was actually pretty serious. So what started out as feeling good and right, and being tapas after all, when pushed too far, it just starts destroying you. I did it with yoga, but there are people who do this in other ways. The triathletes. Iron Man. Have you ever heard of Iron Man? Iron Man is a triathlon, but then 5 times. The triathlon is already just amazing that people can actually complete a triathlon. That is swimming, riding a bicycle, and a full marathon. Riding a bicycle is about 200 kilometers. The marathon is 42 kilometers. And swimming, that's of course, it's also a pretty large distance. They swim several hours anyway to complete. So, several hours swimming, several hours riding a bicycle, 200 kilometers, that is if you ride your bicycle fast, it takes a good part of a day. And then a full marathon. And then Ironman is doing that, like, is it 3 times or is it 5 times? 1 time is already inhuman, but doing it 3 times or 5 times, meaning that you ride your bike 600 or 1000 kilometers, you run a marathon of 200 kilometers, you swim for hours and hours at an end. That is not healthy. Of course, if you feel challenged to do something like that, do it, because it means that you need it. But you have to know when it starts damaging you. If you read stories about people who do triathlons, or even multiple triathlons like an Ironman, they have a lot of wear and tear, especially in their knees, their ankles, hips, but also mentally. It does something with you that is not so healthy in the long term. So what is tapas? What is the practice of austerity? For us, it's our asana practice. We subject ourselves consciously to discomfort. Every asana that you do eventually builds up to discomfort. Have you noticed? But I told you, follow your feeling. There comes a point that it's over. Otherwise you overshoot the goal and you cause disharmony. Our goal is harmony through the practice of tapas. So it has to be to the point where it's not leading to harmony anymore. And that you recognize that point when you feel resistance, when you feel restlessness. Physically, restlessness, shaking muscle, burning muscle, pain, but also mental restlessness. You notice when you do asana, especially the intense poses like the Utthita Parsvakonasana and then Virabhadra 1 and 2, where you bend one leg, they're pretty intense. You notice at some point, no, in the beginning you're calm and focused. That is while it is still constructive. But if you overdo it, you're not calm and focused anymore. You become restless. You start looking around, you start looking for a way to get out of it. If you do that subconsciously, or people who go to the gym, for example, they will grind their teeth and they will say, no pain, no gain. In the gym that may work. Where were we? Tapas.
Stop jogging.
Eh?
Stopped jogging.
Oh, right, jogging. Walking. You know, I got these 2 dogs and I thought, 1 and 1 is 2. They will just make me go out regularly. So we make walks, but dogs are dogs. They don't want to walk 5 kilometers at a high pace. They want to sniff around and left and right. And so for their sake, I stopped making long walks and I kind of feel lost. So now I bought an indoor bicycle. I have a bicycle for outdoor, but the air is dirty and my lungs are sensitive. So I thought, okay, what should I do? I've been in Korea for a long time, so I thought, okay. So now the dogs are stable, so I bought a home trainer, a spinning bike. It feels so good. I just need that. But yoga is yoga. So when you do yoga, the purpose is sattva. that is where your development comes from. But if there is a need for triathlon or swimming or hiking, go up the mountains and walk for hours up and down and do. If you feel the need, follow that need, because it means there is something inside you that really needs that. Try to find a balance. For me, my yoga teacher, and I know there are other yoga teachers, they say, no, only yoga, you don't need anything else. Actually, they will say, when you are born with a certain fixed amount of heartbeats. So if you exercise, you spend so many of your heartbeats, so you will die sooner. Can you believe that? I will tell you this. It's just a common sense, logical thought. People who exercise are in a good condition, have a very low heart rate. So while you exercise, your heart rate may be high, but while you're at rest, your heart rate is much lower than that of people who are not exercising. So that cancels it out. Everybody knows that people who don't exercise, they just die younger than people who do take care of themselves. So that is such a... In Dutch we say there's a kronkel in your brain if you think like that. A kronkel is like a twist, like a... you have these snacks that are twisted. Yeah, it's a little bit like that you have in your brain if you think like that. That is not common sense at all. It's again about just being yourself, many people who take themselves serious as yogis, they will reject everything else, even tell you that it is bad. Like, for example, exercising. But that totally ignores what you actually feel as a need. So for me, I've never pretended to be a yogi or whatever. It's in conflict also with truthfulness and purity, the principles that we study. Just be yourself. Yoga is yoga, but you feel the need to run, to hike, to go to the gym and pump iron, it doesn't matter. Follow that feeling. That is austerity. Austerity is also, using your body what it is designed for. Again, we live in very challenging times because 100 years ago, 200 years ago, everything was done physically. You had to wash your clothes by hand. You had to walk everywhere. If you're lucky, maybe you had a bicycle if they existed already. They're not even that old. So people had a lot of physical activity. Everything was done by hand. Now, if you choose to, you don't have to do anything anymore by hand, except scratch your head. Well, even that maybe you can get a machine for. But we have cars, trains, airplanes, buses, elevators, so we don't have to climb stairs anymore. There is a guy who lives behind the 63 building, and he comes to the park with his dog, a border collie, by car. So the excuse is, the route from Ricentia, it is one of those towers that are built alongside the highway. From there to the park is 600 meters, maybe maximum. He says, people are smoking in the street and they're spitting, so I don't want to walk there with my dog. Every day, 2 times, 3 times, he comes to the park with his dog by car. Now, whether people are smoking and spitting is irrelevant. You can just pass by. But my apartment complex, I live in Shibomapata, And I measured, because in your smartphone everything is there. So I measured the distance from the one end to the part of the apartment complex to the other end. It's a maximum 500 meter. Maximum. I live in the first building of the apartment. So in front of my building, there is the maintenance office is there. The boilers of the heating system are all there. There are 2 kindergartens and a church. This is all in front of my building because that is the beginning of the apartment block, Danji. So I see people dropping off their children at the kindergarten by car. Now, why not? But the sticker on their window says they live in our apartment, which means it's impossible that they live farther away than 500 meters from the kindergarten. Our body is made for this. In fact, if we don't use our body even for these kind of things, we will deteriorate, we will develop a bad health in the long term. But it's about children also. What are you teaching your children if you drive them to the kindergarten from just 300 meters away? Children already have a very challenging upbringing because children are so full of energy. They need a lot of time to play and move and fool around, and they're not allowed to anymore. Young children develop psychological problems because of the restrictions that they have. So move. You live on the 3rd floor, which is 4 flights of stairs. Take the stairs. Your body will be thankful for it. Not only your body, your mind too. You don't have to do anything anymore. You have a washing machine, a dishwasher. I don't have a dishwasher, but many people have. It's even built in when you move into a house. Everything can be, if you're a baker, if you bake bread, in the past you had to, old generation baker, they have arms like this because they're kneading the dough. And these days you push a button and it's done. Don't have to do anything anymore. So we have a luxury problem here, literally and figuratively. We need to have the discipline in spite or because of all the luxury that we have, all the comforts of modern day living. We have to have the discipline to actually get moving. That is tapas. Consciously, deliberately subjecting yourself to discomfort in order to become more comfortable, in order to be healthier, in order to fuel the process of the spiritual awakening. And it starts for us as yogis, it starts with our yoga practice. Sitting on your cushion for 15 minutes, being silent, that is austerity too. Because if you pay attention, maybe when you do it at home and you're alone, you notice that it can be quite challenging to stay on your cushion because your mind comes with all kinds of excuses and distractions that will want to make you get off your cushion before the 15 minutes has passed. And we will build it up. Towards the end of the course, you will be meditating 45 minutes. That's austerity. Turning off the music, sitting there in silence, trying to become sattvic and more calmer in your mind. That's all practice of austerity. You feel challenged? Follow up on that challenge. I've done crazy things where it comes to austerity. It can be karma, you know. The fact that I started practicing Hapkido, that was fueled by I had an anger in me that was caused by my childhood. A raging anger. I canalized that by exercising. So after I discovered yoga, after a year, I registered with a Hapkido studio, and I practiced 6 days a week. I went there every day from 10 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening. I became an assistant to the teacher, and I was totally obsessed by it, basically. That looks like ridiculous, but at that moment I needed that. I just followed my feeling. That's what I'm trying to tell you also. Things can seem to be crazy or ridiculous, but if that is what you feel, you have to follow up on that feeling. You have to work it out. Otherwise you get stuck. Very often people who have issues with the past, traumatic issues or bad memories, bad experiences, they end up getting stuck in a pattern of addiction, for example. Instead of following their feeling and canalizing their energy with something positive or constructive, like yoga, like exercising, going to a gym or riding a bicycle or jogging until you break a good sweat, they oppress and solve the problem with alcohol or heroin or Valium or some kind of drug, pharmaceutical or not. So, you know, yoga teaches us certain things and ideals, but in the end we're all just human, and that's what we have to live with. And if you are honest with that, about that with yourself, then you notice that you end up, instead of being stuck, you end up on a dynamic path of development, of growth, of evolution. And whatever it was that bothered you in the past becomes less and less of an obstacle, less and less of a distraction. But it's impossible to achieve that if you oppress it or deny it. But it becomes a constructive and a positive thing when you follow your feeling and basically act upon that feeling. And if that leads you to some extreme activities, extreme austerity, extreme sports, so be it. It's a temporary stage that you will work through, and it will clear the road for the future, for a better you in the future. Yeah? Be a bit playful about it, but be aware that austerity is of great importance, in fact, whether you're a yogi or not. It is no coincidence or no surprise that one of the biggest industries in the world is the pharmaceutical industry, including the hospital and all the clinics. It's a huge money business, one of the biggest money businesses in the world. Why? Because we allow our bodies to deteriorate. Because there are many people who are not aware of the need, the necessity to do maintenance by subjecting ourselves to a certain level of discomfort to help us maintain ourselves, to function properly on physical, mental, and spiritual level. Sadly, or cynically, doctors kind of stimulate this way of living. Because when you have a problem, most doctors, maybe some who work with their heart, but most doctors will just give you a recipe or a prescription. In Dutch we call it a recipe. We'll give you a prescription for some chemical drugs. Well, the best advice, almost all diseases that we suffer from, the best advice is simply to start moving. Eat properly, eat healthy food, and start moving. Go next door to the gym next door and start exercising. Going to the doctor should be the start of a new approach. Eastern medicine, Korean traditional medicine, is based on this idea. The patient has to participate in their healing process. The doctor can only help you to find the right way, but you must, and always included in traditional medicine is you starting to exercise one way or another. That is tapas. Further down the road, you as a yogi, you will not accept being sick anymore if you get sick. Even if that means that you need to go to a doctor, you will take the medicine, but you will immediately start trying to figure out what it is that you did wrong, because you know that it is only your responsibility that you got there. And as soon as you can, you will get off the medicine. 2 years ago, in January, I had pain in my chest. I went to the hospital. They gave me pills. They said you have spasms in your coronary artery. So I asked in the beginning every month, and then every 3 months I had to come back to the cardiologist, and I asked him several times, "Doctor, when can I stop taking this medicine?" You know what he said every time again? He said, "You'll have to take this for the rest of your life." After 6 months, I stopped taking the medicine because I figured out why I have spasms in my coronary artery. As a yogi, you become more conscious and more sensitive. It's a story I tell all the time. That also means that if you're facing obstacles, if you're facing uncertainty, instability, it affects you. And one of the things that is affected by emotional condition, worry, doubt, fear about the future, instability, is your heart. So instead of taking pills, I canceled my courses and I started focusing on pada and getting my life back on the rails again. Eliminate the cause for the spasms in the coronary artery. So after 6 months, I stopped taking the medicine, but I continued to go to the doctor. I didn't tell him that I stopped, so he kept giving me, for 3 months, a whole bag full of medicine. I just put it in the cupboard. Because it's the heart, you don't want to mess with that. But I stopped taking the medicine, and after another 6 months without medicine, I told him, "Hey, doctor, I want to stop taking the medicine." And he said, "You can't." So he reduced. Instead of 2 pills, he gave me 1 pill per day, which I put in the cupboard. I didn't tell him yet. But at some point I told him, "Hey, doctor, I understand why I have these spasms, and I have made corrections in my life so that the reason why I have these spasms is eliminated. And I feel good. And honestly, I haven't been taking the medicine for a while now." So he said, "Huh, how is that possible? Your blood pressure is perfect." And so he thought my blood pressure was perfect because of the medicine that I got. So then he said, "Okay, you know what? From today, 1 month later, you come back, we check again. If it's good, then you don't have to come back anymore. What I'm trying to say here, as a yogi, you will take control of yourself and your own health. You cannot accept anymore. What doctors want is that you become a lifelong patient, because that brings money into the bank. Just the idea. I mean, if you have a really serious disease, chronic disease, you need a doctor. Heart issues serious, lung issues serious. But as a yogi, you understand what is going on. You connect the dots. And you cannot stand the idea that you have to take that medicine your whole life. You take control. Do you recognize this or not yet? Naturally. If something is out of whack, as a yogi, you understand why it is out of whack, and you correct. Maybe you need a doctor temporarily, but then you say, hey doctor, everything is fine now. Check again and see, and then, okay. Is this strange? It's strange, because most people will just continue to take the medicine for the rest of their life, because they have no idea. They think the doctor is always right. They don't have the vision to connect the dots and to see that whatever the problem is caused by yourself in the first place, and if you have caused it, means you can also undo the cause. For me, I cancelled. I had no income anymore. Then I got these dogs coming into my life, and I made a plan, and I said, okay. First and most important thing now is Pada and Babi becoming stable. Next thing important is me becoming stable. Also financially, I had no income. And then the third thing is, whatever lies ahead of me. Whatever comes on my path. Maybe a new relationship someday, but the basis is the dogs. Their well-being is the most important, then mine, and then the next. We'll see. And it really worked out. I dove into a deep dark hole, and it worked out amazingly. Austerity also means remaining content in difficult, challenging situations. That is what I put into practice. It was scary, I tell you that. In a faraway land with no family and friends around, no income. Frankly speaking, I didn't think I would ever teach yoga again. So what the hell am I doing here? But the dogs opened my heart again. Inspiration naturally came. The phone rang. Hey Ron, I have a studio. You want to use my studio on Saturday, Sunday? Oh, okay. There's no coincidence. Everything just happened exactly at the right time. The right place, the right people. Do you experience this in your life already? You will see. Everything's connected. There's no coincidence. The more sensitive and conscious you become, the more life will be like that. Why am I telling you this? Because it's very reassuring. No matter how deep you sometimes go, no matter how dark the hole sometimes is, it always ends up well, as long as you don't give up. Practice contentment. Practice tapas. Keep yourself healthy. then the universe will take care of the rest. Contentment is to maintain a positive attitude, a constructive attitude. Take care of daily things. Shopping, go shopping. Cook, clean the house. If you have a dog, take good care of the dogs. They depend on you. Even though you're miserable, you cannot pass that on to your dogs. They need you to be happy and healthy. And that gives you a distraction from the problems that you're actually in, that it will solve itself naturally. Questions? You know, we will come back to this later, but Patanjali refreshingly says in chapter 2 that the world is your playground. That doesn't mean that you go to Lotte World and jump into the roller coaster. Not that playground. The playground of daily life. Try to see every challenge, every difficulty that you come across. Try to see it as a sport, to deal with it. We have a tendency to become depressed and dark and pessimistic when things are not going ideal ways. But you learn the most, you progress the most, you grow the most as a result of overcoming challenges in life, difficulties in life. And once you realize that, you will completely change your mind, your point of view, next time when confronted with difficulties. While in the past you always try to avoid difficulties if you can, you now say, hey, there is something here for me. There is some potential here for me, something to explore, something to overcome. It will totally change the dynamic of your life. It will enable you to deal with difficulties that other people cannot deal with. And it will so empower you as an individual, on your own. Not needing your mommy anymore, or your daddy anymore, or family or friends, on your own. Good. Let's have a short break. Questions? I asked already. Okay, let's have a short break.